Lynn's well known to us, not only because he's a member of our club, but because he had and been such a high profile and highly regarded and respected public figure from his time at university and in teaching with the South Australian Parliament, and his time as Premier of our state, and then moving on to World Vision as CEO of the Australian branch in Melbourne, and then on to Bangkok as the Regional President for Asia Pacific, before he returned to Adelaide as the Chief Executive of Anglicare South Australia, and then studying theology and becoming ordained as a deacon in 2013 and as a priest in 2014. Lynn's married to Elaine. They have 5 young children, 2 sets of twins in that, which I know has kept them busy in those early years, and he's got 4 grandchildren. President David's asked Lynn to talk to us today about the new Rotary theme, being a gift to the world, and also, as Lynn is our incoming chair of the Friends of Rotary, to touch on our new program for Friends of Rotary. Thanks very much, Lynn.
Thank you very much, Darcy. It's been great to catch up with you again too. We've known each other since the 1970s from the teaching arena. And thank you very much for the invitation to come here today to speak about the theme of being a gift to the world. Rotary has a very proud heritage. It is, in fact, an organisation committed to service. It's an organisation committed to being a gift to the world. And so when the international president, Ravi Ravindran, set the theme as being a gift to the world, it ought to have resonated with each and every one of us. I found that his statement where he talks about this is so powerfully given. It is said that we are born with our fists clenched, but we die with our hands open, and that our talents are the gift that God gave us. What we make of our talents is our gift back to God. So it is a proud heritage that Rotary has, and I think of that heritage expressing itself in so many ways, particularly with the younger generation, with things like RILA, with Rotaract, with the exchange program that Rotary has conducted for decades now. And I think about Friends of Rotary, which I have been given the honour of convening in the year ahead. And I see that as a very important opportunity for Rotary to reach out to people who are not yet able to become full-time members of Rotary, but we hope would certainly transition into it. But can I tell you that I see Friends of Rotary as being much more than just a standby lounge as people are waiting before they enter into full Rotary. Rather, I see it as an opportunity whereby we can engage with people who are doing things in different aspects of life. They can be learning and being mentored by us as Rotarians from the experiences that we have, but they too can offer a gift back. And one of the strengths of leadership is being able to learn as well as to lead. The very idea of servant leadership, which is such a powerful message that Jim Collins and the Bible, of course, talks about servant leadership, is the idea of actually being able to draw out the very best in those with whom you are working in a leadership role. And so I'm seeing it in my capacity as convener of that committee, and that we will see it as an opportunity to re-energise ourselves as a result of those whom we are able to bring into the Friends of Rotary situation. Now, in a moment, I'll be introducing Heidi to speak about just how somebody who made that transition into Rotary can have such a powerful impact and have brought that impact into the organisation. When I was thinking about what I might speak about today and talking with David about it beforehand, he said, well, you've been in a lot of leadership opportunities, and indeed I have, right back from the university demonstrations through to teaching. Teaching itself is a leadership kind of role, into government, World Vision, and later Anglicare. I've chaired, convened, patronised, CEO'd more organisations and things than I think I've had hot breakfasts. So in one sense you might say I might have a lot to say about leadership. And indeed I do give lectures on leadership to different organisations at different times, and particularly emphasise the role of the servant leadership model that I think we are all called to follow. But you know, one of the things that stands out to me is how much I have learned when I've been in any leadership role from those with whom I've had the privilege to be engaged as one of their leaders. And one of the leadership roles we have in our lives is that of being, well, many of us have the opportunity, is that of being parents. And I want to today not tell my story of leadership, but to tell the story of one of my children. And perhaps we might put up that photograph. And I do it as a means of talking about this theme of a gift to the world. I want to introduce to you our youngest daughter. She is one of the two sets of twins. She is the elder of the younger set of twins, and she never forgets to remind her 10-minute younger brother that she's older than him, to Annalena. And you're not going to be able to see this very well, but in the top corner there, she is crouching on the ground. There is a soldier with a rifle. He is translating for her as she's talking to a village leader. In the next shot on the top, she's in front of a house with an orange plastic fencing around it. That's a quarantined house. The people behind the orange fence are suspected of having Ebola, but not yet having been confirmed Ebola. And so they're bringing food to them because they're not allowed to leave that area, of course, and also asking them what symptoms they're showing. There is no test that you can quickly do in the field to find Ebola, so they're looking for indicators. Down the bottom is, you can't make it out very well, but it's a plastic-sided race, you might call it, that goes for about 5 meters. And there are many roadblocks in Sierra Leone, in this part of Sierra Leone, where every time they stop there, my daughter and all in the vehicle have to get out, walk through the race to show that they're not unsteady on their feet, because if they are, that's an indicator of Ebola. Have their temperature taken, that's another indicator of Ebola. And then to rinse their hands in a heavily chlorinated fluid that is, she's done it so many times now that she says the skin is peeling off her hands. The bottom one, she's working in a car as she's out into the field. Now she's out there in Sierra Leone. She will, when she comes back in early August, will have been there nearly 3 months. She had first told us the possibility of going there in November last year. And I have to say my wife and I were not all that pleased at the thought. And we immediately said, well, darling, there must be lots of others who can go there. Well, I had my first relearning leadership lesson. As she said to me, she said, Dad, this is always what I've wanted to do. This is what I feel I am called to do. And from that moment on, I understood that one of the aspects of being a parent is to acknowledge that your children will know, with guidance and leadership, what they should be doing with their life. And here our daughter had followed a lesson we had given her throughout her life about being part of community, and now she wanted to be part of community, even if it was a part of community we didn't feel very comfortable about. So with that, from that moment on, she went with our blessing. And she flew over to Port Loko, which is one of the hotspots of Ebola, still in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone is still showing more cases every week, and the area that she's in is one of those areas showing those more cases. I want to read out just some of the notes that she sent to me by messaging. I asked her how long is she working. This is what she wrote. Our hours now are 7 to 8 p.m., 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. as part of Operation Northern Push. They've asked if I want to extend my time here. I would really love to. Then she had a bit of a passing comment because some of the people that had been sent, and she's in charge of leading them, had really not been keen about being there. So why they went, I don't know. But this is what she said. I need people in the field with me who don't whinge about the heat, the hours, the long drives, who remember to bring their own food and water. We're trying to stamp out Ebola here. Anyway, then she sent me another little reminder, another little message immediately after. She said, because I got worried, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week, because she has worked 7 days a week now since the end of May. There's a misunderstanding about the hours. We only have to work 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. But the boss said if we feel we need to come in late some days because we're tired, that's fine, but we do need to be at the 7 p.m. meeting at the end of each day. I asked her, when does she rest? When and how do I rest? When I sleep. and I have brief moments in the car going to the field where I listen to my music, and at this time and early in the morning while I'm drinking my coffee and writing to you. I sent her a message about how inspiring she was, and she said this: "Your message brought tears to my eyes, but the people who are inspiring are the local people who have been fighting Ebola for over a year now." She then said, and I made a comment about how she had fallen, obviously, in love with the place. "I thought about your comment about how quickly I love a place, and it made me think, everything is so intense and magnified here. You work so closely with people under a lot of pressure. It's the kind of environment where strong bonds are formed quickly." And please forgive what I'm now about to say, because it's not a word that has ever passed my lips, and certainly not in a public place. Crap. The boss is now here wanting to talk work. Another positive case. And I want to tell you, this was written at 7 a.m. in the morning, her time. "I'll check in with you later." Well, she did. About 30 seconds later, she sent another quick message. "Sorry about the language, Dad." But then there was an episode that happened. A woman who had been suspected of having Ebola fled from a quarantine centre and went missing. It was desperately urgent for them to find her. It took them 9 days as they went through 3 different villages trying to find where this woman had been. Finally, one morning at 6:30 in the morning, our time, my daughter rings. "Dad, I need to talk." We found her. "Oh, thank goodness." And then my daughter's crying. We found her. She died yesterday in childbirth. She had given birth to a little baby girl, and my daughter was deeply distressed. She didn't know, she knew she had to cope with this, but she didn't know how this poor baby was going to get by, because the survival rate chances for a baby with Ebola are next to nil. And this baby had been given this gift of death in her birth. And of course, all those who had attended the birth were now vulnerable to being infected by Ebola as well. Well, 3 days later, I was due to give another speech, and Don Serra was there. He heard this speech, so he's heard some of this story before. And I had a speech all written out. But 20 minutes before I was due to stand up and give it, I got another message from her. The simple message was this: "Baby Emma died overnight last night." I changed my entire speech from that moment. Indeed, she sent me a message a bit later when I asked, "How are you coping with this?" I wanted to cry. How do I go home? Because she'd been asked to extend at this point, and my wife and I were very anxious. We didn't want her to extend. We wanted her to come home because she's standing within a metre of people who have Ebola. How do I go home to work on projects like my evaluation project when tragedies like this are happening and I have the capacity to do something? I know everyone is worried about me being tired and fatigued, but what about all the Sierra Leoneans who have been working non-stop for over a year now? I still want to cry. I saw that little baby girl. She then did decide to extend for a month. We were still at this stage not knowing whether she would do it. She went into silence then. There was no communication with her for 3 days. Finally, I knew what she had done. She had made the decision to stay on and didn't know quite how to tell us. So I simply sent her a message. "Darling, we are with you. You know what you want to do. You know what you have to do. So you go with our blessing." And she sent this message: "Thank you. I'm so blessed. I know you're not 100% happy about it, but I've made the decision to stay the extra month. I promise I'll take a break, and I mean it. I love you all so very much. I know this is what God wants me to do." Now, I tell you that story because I have relearnt lessons I've forgotten, learnt new lessons from my daughter about leadership in these last 2.5 months than I've learnt in many a year. I've been in leadership roles. I've been giving what I think I can give to community. She has re-energized me to think, am I really giving as much as I can? Am I in one of those situations where you reach a kind of comfort zone, a complacency zone? Well, I'll attend meetings, I'll convene committees, I'll be on things, and I'll go out to different sorts of things. Am I doing as much as I can? Now, I'm not about to suggest to all of you, by the way, that my message today is the next plane to Sierra Leone is leaving in whatever time. Though you may want to do that. I came across somebody in World Vision, Bernard Barron, a former CEO many years ago, who retired and then at the age of 74 came into my office one day and said, "Oh, Lynn, I just want to come and say goodbye." "Why?" "Oh, I've accepted a position in Serbia, helping with relief work in Serbia." This was in the aftermath of the Kosovo war, and he was 74. But I'm not asking you to do that. What I'm asking you to think about is this issue of how can we take the energy that we encounter with people younger than ourselves who are out there doing amazing things, being a gift to the world, to help us look at the ways in which our gifts to the world can be more powerful. We have a strategic plan in this organisation. It's an excellent strategic plan. But you know, a strategic plan is as good as its readers. We need to read that strategic plan, as a gift to energise us to do what we can to answer that presidential call of being a gift to the world. I hope that's what Friends of Rotary will help do for us as well. But I want to now call up Heidi Filsell, who has been through that transition process, is now a full member of Rotary, who has actually been in a situation like my daughter, where she has had the opportunity to throw a passion into something and being a gift to the world. Her gift is kind of serendipitous, and I find that amazing because one of the countries she's been to serve with is Sri Lanka. And you may not know, but the original name of Sri Lanka in the Western world was Serendip. So please welcome Heidi Filsell to speak to us.
Thank you so much. It's a hard act to follow. I don't think I was very romantically inclined to do anything quite so brave in Sri Lanka. I went without hot water, which was just devastating in a place that was 98 degrees with humidity and 34 degrees, or 98% humidity, 34 degrees, until I got to deliver 2 hands to a man who was a double amputee, and I realised at least I have hands to turn the taps on in the shower. So I think that was a very strong message. What I'm here to let you know is that I only joined Rotary back in October. I didn't even know what Rotary was about, to be honest. I joined through for fellowship reasons. And I actually wasn't even going to join Rotary because when somebody suggested that I might like to join a club, I said, "But that's for old men, isn't it?" And I'm looking around here and no one's now got a roll so they can't throw it at me, but apparently it's not for old men. It's for people who are passionate about giving, passionate about giving a gift to the world. And I've fallen into love with this organisation and being able to give to other people. And this was the guy that David actually helped build the hand. And he was on the last day. We delivered, just to let you know some facts, we delivered and fitted approximately 200 hands from Jaffna, which is in the north of the country, down to Colombo. And this was on our last day, our second last day. And he was an army person who lost his hand both hands actually, clearing landmines. So this gentleman, I was educating him, teaching him how to manipulate his hands. So you put one hand behind your back and try to do everything in life. Then you put your second hand behind your back and realise that to drink your soup, you look like a dog. To eat your food, that's how you have to go about it. If you want to write something, you either get someone to do it for you or you use your mouth. So this man, when I read out who actually had donated this hand and I saw David's face, I've gone, "Oh my God, I know this man, it's so exciting." And so he was very swept up in the excitement that I was feeling at the time through his interpreter, thank goodness, otherwise he would have just thought I was a crazy Australian woman, which I am and I'm quite happy to be. But yeah, that's David there in the picture. And so he was a double amputee and he was just thrilled to receive his hand. And I just wanted to let you guys know that you gave a gift. So you're the very new saying that we have for the next year. You gave a gift. I got to deliver it. And he gave me the biggest gift on earth, and that's the gift of perspective. And that's the gift that I give you today. So thank you very much, David.
Well, we're most fortunate today to have two speakers, and so two people who you might like to ask a question of or two. We've got a few minutes, so do you have any questions for Lynn or for Heidi? Heidi was telling me earlier on how excited she was when she saw the name Egan, and she said, "Oh, I know that." And she said, "Then I saw the photo," and she said, "Oh." I said, "Yeah, we all feel like that when we see photos of David." Oh, no, sorry. Do we have any questions, please? Thanks, mate.
Lynn, you've obviously had many roles in leadership. Can you tell us what's been the most challenging?
Well, of course, it depends on your definition of challenge. My time in politics, I used to speak that I was greatly privileged and enjoyed it enormously, but a third of the time was good, a third was bad, and a third was terrible, but that was okay. It could have been worse, so it had its own challenges. But I think I learnt most out of my time in World Vision, when I had the opportunity to be in the field. I mean, Heidi's spoken about that blessing that you get back when you're with people who help you put things in enormous perspective. But sometimes that challenge can be very confronting. I remember after the birth of our first grandchild, and I think I've actually spoken about this at Rotary once before, straight after his birth, I'm a week later, I'm thrown into the maelstrom of Cambodia and in the darkest side of Cambodia for a week. I'd had a kind of way of dealing with seeing difficult things, the recipe suddenly broke with the joy of my grandson and the tragedy of the young lives I was seeing day after day after day, and some of those young lives were now dead. They were just photographs of dead kids who had been tortured to death in the time of the Khmer Rouge. That was hugely challenging, so much so that I almost thought I would need to seek counselling out of it. In fact, however, the challenge became an opportunity because I then realised that I was being challenged by God. They had a prayer in World Vision, "Let my heart be broken by the things that break the heart of God." And God had said to me, "You've become too comfortable. I'm going to break your heart." He did break my heart, and that's when I came home and told my wife. I don't know, she says later she was a bit disconcerted, but "I'm sorry, I think we're going to have to leave Australia and go into the field." And that's when we went to Asia as a result of that. So it was that period that I learnt so much from, and I learnt from the challenges that it gave. Thank you. Yes, so you're talking about the bombings in London, and we have seen a lot of news coverage about that. Jill Hicks, who is a dear friend of many of us in this room, has gone back to London and has caught up with people who played such a role for her in her surviving, but more than surviving, going on and putting in context the monstrosity of the evil that was committed on that day. And I think she is a beacon for us all because she has taken the hate of that day and given us a powerful message of how, as humanity, we need to grow on. Now, we have choices out of that. We have choices either to accept that we want to be a humanity, and humanity in the best sense of the word, or we want to be a hate-filled group of people. There are enough people filled with hate in this world at the moment without ourselves adding ourselves to the tally, and I think that's precisely the powerful message Jill gives. She's not giving a whitewash message, but she's giving a message of constructive moving on to a better future. So what do I feel now? Well, when I've only had the privilege of becoming a friend of Jill's in the last 3 years. I count it as a great privilege. And she lifts my heart. I've seen things in my time when I've seen desperate things in humanitarian emergencies, natural disasters, and the things that lift your heart. So I feel more optimistic out of that, notwithstanding the dark clouds that we still see hanging over many parts of the world, particularly Syria and Iraq.
We probably have time for one more question. Tony.
Lynn, I worked with you when you were head of education department. We now have a policeman in charge of the education function in South Australia. Does the fact that he's a leader, is that paramount? Or I'd like your opinion about whether it makes sense to have a policeman rather than an educator leading our education department.
Well, I mean, I can't comment on his particular skills of leading a department that I love dearly. It was one of the great privileges of my life to be Minister of Education. It was a time of enormous, great achievement. We were achieving things. I was part of that, but there were so many around me who just were achieving so much. It was a privilege to be able to be leading their team. But I want to actually take perhaps issue with a comment about whether or not somebody who doesn't have an educator background can come in to be an educator. I've moved into many things in my life where I had no experience at all before. And you may say, yeah, that's obvious, you bungled a lot of them. But I mean, I ended up being Minister of Agriculture, and I had to tell farmers I couldn't farm to save my life. But in the end, because I went in wanting to learn from them, I think we had a great relationship. I was Minister of Fisheries. Well, I can count on one hand the fish I've caught in my life, and they were sort of suicidal fish, really. I'm just not good at it. But I learned a lot there. I went into World Vision not having had any experience in the not-for-profit sector. And I know there were people asked the question when I first got there, an ex-politician, how's he going to know how to run Australia's largest overseas aid agency? And yet in the end, I think we had a great time together. So it really is the spirit with which somebody goes into a situation, even if they haven't got the technical seeming fit, provided they go in with an openness, a listening, taking stock of what's happening, and then taking advantage of the fact that they can sometimes see the forest when we're caught in the trees. And that's what I felt I brought to situations where I didn't have the skill. Also brought a lot of dumb questions, and people will tell you that, and that helped me too.
Thanks very much, Lynn. Firstly, Heidi, I think that's our time for today, so sorry about any more questions. Heidi, thank you very much for being a guest at our club today and for giving us insights with respect to the hands that we as a club helped put together back in Mannum. And would you kindly accept that small token of our appreciation? Thanks very much for coming. I've been very fortunate to know Lynn and Elaine for about 40 years, and I'll have to say that they are two of the most sincere and caring people I know, and I think that's one reason why you see such a varied pathway in the things that Lynn has undertaken, and also why his daughter is doing what she is today. So thank you very much, Lynn, for giving us that wonderful insight to your daughter being a gift to the world. Small appreciation.
Thank you very much.